Hello there again, friends. Today is 1/8/2022, and this is Odin Vlog Project Day 34. Today we're starting Fundamentals Part 1 of JavaScript, and this is actually take 2. So I tried recording this video just a little bit ago, and I wasn't even done with it, and it was already at 22 minutes. So I'm going to condense this down severely. So um, I hope that this makes sense to you and it flows well. I don't want to put out those kinds of videos, especially on something here that's very wordy and very word heavy that requires you guys to do a lot of reading. So I'm going to go through things, but I'm going to go through them very abbreviated because at the end, I do want to spend some time in the Visual Studio Editor with you and going over some of the live content at the bottom. So basically, in a nutshell, it starts off right off the bat with asking you a bunch of questions, and they say by the end you should be able to answer these, and they're kind of like self checks, if you will. This part right here, I won't go over them for the sake of time, but it goes into how to run JavaScript code, and basically it tells you to create this boilerplate file and inside on your local workstation, and this is what we're going to work from. So there's a couple schools of thought here, and basically the short and dirty is what I did was I went out here and I created just a folder under my projects folder called foundations.js-not-github. The words don't mean anything, it just means something to me, but basically I created this folder out here, and then what I did was I opened up Visual Studio Code, and I right clicked in here and said add folder to workspace, and I located this folder and added it, and then here I right clicked and hit new file, and that's when I created the index.html that you see here, and that is this right here. So this is what we'll be working from. The school of thought, the thought that I am taking is I'm going to be putting, until it tells me differently, I'm going to be putting all my code inside the in between scripts. So script and then close script tag. This is where you put your JavaScript in between here. And then as you can see, this sits inside your body. I'm going to put my code in here, and then I'm going to use console.log, which reports it to the web browser. And I'm going to show you now how that works. But I'm going to do this, my code in here, and then I'm going to run it against the browser, which is, so here's my index.html, and I'm just going to refresh it, and of course there's nothing there right now. But the console on developer tools here, the console tab, right here it'll output whatever's in your console.log. Whether it's a variable or a value you're putting in there, it will report it out here. There's another school of thought, that you can actually put your JS code directly in here, and I was trying to do that, putting it inside this carrots right here instead of putting it inside the script tag. But I was having some weird errors, like where it was, I don't know if it was falling out of memory or what, but basically it wouldn't remember a section of code, and I have to refresh the page, type it in again, and not hit enter, so it wouldn't show up in the console. And so basically it seemed like it was line breaking instead of being able to process it when I want to process it. It processed every time I hit the enter key, I think, or something weird like that. So I gave up on that, and I looked in Inspector to see if I could do it in here and like write this code in here, and it's too dang difficult. You can, but look at how messy that looks. It's so yeah. So I gave up on that. So my school of thought and the way I'm doing it is I'm going to write it in here, save the file, refresh the page, look at console, look at the report out. Simple as that. Let me know in the comments what you think of that. If you're doing it differently, I'd love to hear from you, and let me know how you're doing it. So in this exercise. So without further ado, we're going to go through this very, very lightning fast. You guys do need to go through and read all this material. It's very word heavy today. It's very math heavy. syntactically heavy. It's very good stuff, but you got to spend some time with it, and I can't. This video won't do justice, but we're going to highlight it. So first starts talking about variables. There's this very great variable tutorial right here, and it starts off by talking about a variable. Your let command creates a variable, and then you can fill the variable with a value with an equal sign. We are going to ignore alerts because alerts is a different way of it puts a pop-up on the screen, but we're not doing that because the Odin Project said specifically to use console.log that we just went over, so we can look at it in the browser log console. So we're doing that instead. I'm not questioning it. I'm just following following the program. They show you different ways to input data. You can do it all in one line. You can do it on separate lines individually with more let commands, or you can do one let command with multiple. This is actually how I like doing it. I actually have some experience with other languages, Python and C# primarily. I'm not a pro with any of them, but especially with Python, this is kind of the format they use. You create your use your let here, which should be defining your variable. Define your variable, add the value to your variable, and then you hit a comma at the end, and then you're able to add to it. So you add I don't know if tabbing or spacing matters in JavaScript, but it definitely matters in like Python. So like when you tab in, that tells the editor that your age equals 25 is also a let command, a variable. And so is message equals hello. In the end, always end in a semicolon, just like we have in CSS. I also like this format because that's kind of how we've been doing CSS in a very linear fashion. So that's kind of how I'm going to work with things like this. Or if they're short and sweet, I might do this method. I definitely am not going to do this method. It's too messy for my eyes. But you can put like commas, but you got to have the correct spacing in there, otherwise it'll give you errors. And it's whatever your flavor you like, and either one of these, any of these work. There's no wrong way to do it. It's just what your preference is. And then this goes into var, which is variable, which is the old version in JavaScript of setting, and instead of let, you'd use var. Var makes more sense actually to me, but var is more familiar to me with Python and C#. But in JavaScript, we're going to be using let, and var has a different meaning in the old school way, but they don't really tell you here. They just say we're going to go over it at a later time. They're just saying that in case you are debugging older code, excuse me, that might have var in it. That basically is the same thing as let. And there's a real life analogy. You're talking about how variables work. Again, I can't get to verbose in here because I did this on the first screen and first recording, and it took forever. But declaring twice triggers an error, so they're just saying you can't do this. You can't declare message and then declare message again in the same application or file. It will give you an error because it's already been defined. You can do message equals that, which is not best practice either, but that would work. But you can't use the word let in front of it. And then it talks about variable naming, what makes a good name, what makes a bad name. You can use $and underscore in your variable names. You cannot use 1 in front, so it can't start with a digit, and it can't have a hyphen. Case does matter, which is interesting. Some programming languages it matters, some it doesn't. So case sensitive is a big deal in JavaScript. And it talks about reserved names, like you can't use the word let, return, class, function, because those are reserved variables and reserved words for JavaScript. You cannot do an assignment without use strict. So basically this will throw you an error. You need to use the word let in front of it if you're using strict. Just FYI, you can do this if you're not using strict. You can declare and num as 5, or for example, without let or without var if you're not using strict. But best practice is to always use let in front of it, or var. That way it'll work in both methods. Okay, so here it comes down to constants. So here's a constant, birthday. The constant is basically a variable that never changes in your code. Just what it sounds like. Again, case sensitive. Uh, and they talk about using uppercase constants for hard code, things that you want to put in your code that never change. And they're referencing something like this. Color red is pound F00. Instead of having to reference your code to pound F00 everywhere and trying to remember what that means, you can just create an alias and assign it in caps as color red, and then in your code you could just use color red or color orange or whatever to call it, and you know, assign it a variable called color and print color, and that will print that color without you having to actually remember that pound and all those hexadecimal numbers. So again, it just talks about what I just said. Naming's everything, and then there's some tasks at the end you need to work through. We won't do those here. And then the second article goes over math operations and order operations. JavaScript works a lot like real life math, where order operations matter. Like division and multiplication come before addition and subtraction, those sorts of things. Now they're going over adding and subtracting using let. Again, for the sake of time, I'm just going to fly through some of this incrementing. You can increment by using x or plus x, or decrement by using minus minus. You use minus minus after or before. It'll do different things. Don't have time to explain that right now. You can use exponentation by using pound pound, or excuse me, asterisk asterisk. So like that's the old school way of using math.pow. This is the new way of doing it, and it does the same thing with less keystrokes. We talked about operator precedence already. It works just like if you're using strictly values or numbers. The order operations works exactly the same as real life math. And then if you put something in parentheses, it will force that operation first, just like in real math. So, and it talks about the value and the precedence of different things, different commands. Again, you can review over that. The next section goes into, sorry, these go at the bottom of the page because like I said, I already did this recording once. This goes over more JavaScripting numbers, more examples, more verbose. Talks about extra large numbers, floating points, integer precision. So you can see JavaScript is very flexible with what it allows. It will go out to the 15th digit before it rounds, which is super flexible. Never seen a programming language that flexible before. Python and C# are definitely not that flexible. You can't even, you actually in JavaScript you can just use the decorator. You can use number. It can be anything, a float, a decimal, integer, versus other languages like C# and JavaScript or not JavaScript, Python. You have to have you have to know what your variable is. So if your variable numbers are going to be a float, you have to use a float, or you have to use a integer, or you have to use a type of Boolean, or not Boolean, double, for instance in C#. Like you have to know it up front, versus if you don't know it up front in JavaScript, it's okay. It's gonna process it. It's just using numbers. So that's pretty sweet. Again, a lot of more examples. Strings, and double quotes are strings and not actual numbers. Not a number. It goes over NAN, which is not a number. Examples of that. Just so much stuff. I highly recommend you read through this stuff. Don't skip anything. And then this is basically going over more of the same thing. It's just looking at it a different way. I think the text says something like this article basically takes the angle a different way. It teaches you more of the syntactical method approach to math versus all the other articles so far are just kind of like here's how the math works, and this is kind of like how the syntax works for the math. Again, I don't have time to get into any of this, but there's a lot of good stuff in here. And if you skip this stuff, you will have knowledge gaps and you won't be able to complete the exercises. So, addition plus some of this stuff's self-explanatory. Some of it's a little more advanced. You do need to go through it on your own. You can do operators that mean it's shorthand basically, like this one. Division would equal the shortcut for x equals x divided by 5. So it's shorthand. It just makes your code cleaner and smaller and shorter, less keystrokes basically. Live output, messing with different values of pixels to get the box different sizes. It talks about comparison operators, and that's about it. And there's a little exercise at the bottom. And then the last article they have goes over more of the same. It's a lot of math. There's obviously it's an important concept. We'll probably be revisiting it at various times. It goes over again more of a double asterisk for those powers. Talks about binary, which I didn't really know much about this. I actually had to read it twice to understand what it was talking about, but I'll let you guys read into that more. Or now they're talking more about operator precedence again. Shoot, man, where are you? 16 minutes. I'm sorry, guys. This is probably boring the crap out of you, but it's just an overview of. And then these are, you don't want to skip these. There are tasks at the bottom. Actually says in the text to do the assignments. I did do them, but we don't have time to go over them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hit the code editor split screen with the fundamentals page here, and we're going to go over the assignment that they actually have you do at the bottom here. So there is an actual assignment here. So it says try the following exercise and don't forget to use console.log. So you see I already have console.log in here. Excuse me. Tourette's is active here. So it says number 1, add two numbers together. Just type console.log, which I already had in here. So I had 23 plus, make sure you get your spaces in there, 97. Control S to save, and then go over to the page where it's sitting, refresh it, and console comes up to 120, which is correct. Number 2, add a sequence of 6 different numbers together. So this is just random, just for explanation. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we save that and go over to our page, refresh, and it increased by 4, which is correct. So that worked. Yep. We still have syntactical problems though. It did work, but you don't want to get in the habit of having all these issues. So make sure your code is good and clean when you run these. See, that did work, but maybe it won't always work. Again, I'm new to JavaScript, but do not get in the habit of taking shortcuts and leaving things incorrect. Number 3, print the solution to the following equation. So I'm going to do in 4 plus 6 plus 9 n divided by 77, and the answer should be approximately 0.24. Save it, go over to console, refresh, 0.24, perfect. Let's use some variables. Alright, cool. Get this out of log, so our console will be clean and ready to go. Alright, so it says type the following at the top of the script. Okay, so here's our script. Do let a, so we're going to create a variable called a, and we're going to give it the value of 10. And then it says console.log a should print 10. So we're going to go ahead and throw the variable a in there, so it's going to read out to the console 10. And it does. Cool. Try the following. 9 plus a. Okay, so we're going to console.log, or times a, excuse me. 9 times a, and then and this, and then it says, okay, so I think if you save this, it will give you 90. Okay, so yeah, so it did do that. So 9 times a, so it did 9 times at the value of a, which is 10, and that's 90. Perfect. So then it says, and add this. So we're going to go here, add another let statement. So let b equals 7 times a, and they're saying it should return a. I've done this already, and I don't think this works like it's supposed to. Yeah, see, it's only doing 9 times a. They're saying, I'll tell you what it's supposed, why they're saying it returns undefined. They're saying it's return undefined, and it's working here because, actually no, let's do this. Actually, before I say that, let me throw this in here. And I think they're doing this to show you, get that out of there, that it's going to do undefined, I think. Syntax error. Prints missing after argument list. No. Anyway, I'm already at 20 some minutes, so I'm not going to do this exact one. I'm going to tell you what it means. It's undefined because in JavaScript you cannot, because it runs it line by line and gives you it gives you, what do they call it? Return statement. Because it gives you a return statement on that particular line, it doesn't work because you cannot assign. It's undefined because you can't assign a value to b that has the value a that's not defined. So in this example, a doesn't mean anything because there's no definition for a. So you can't then say use a to equal b, and that's why it says undefined. So if we go into console log b, it says put b in there. When you do that, then it completes the Yep. So b is 70 because 7 times a, which is 10, is 70. So that's perfect. Should be getting the hang of this by now. Try this sequence. Okay, we're going to get rid of this. And we're going to declare a constant variable. So if you remember, const is const. Max, remember, case sensitivity matters. So max const 57. Set another variable. So we're not doing a const on this, so we're just going to let excuse me, actual equals max minus 13. Get that space in there correctly. Colon, semicolon. And I set another variable to let percentage, jeez, equal to actual divided by max, semicolon. And then it says if you type percentage into the console and press enter, what we're doing in log, inside the log, console log here, Control S and run it, you should get a value of 0.7719. 0.7719, perfect. So what this does is, so your max is 57. So actual is received a value of 57, which is your max, minus 13, and then that becomes actual, and then actual is that value divided by max, which is 57, which then is entered into the value of percentage, and then you're writing out percentage, and that's the math, and that's how that flow that works out to 0.7719. So I am sorry this video went into almost going to be over 25 minutes, but there was no quick way to do this. I was hoping the second recording is going to be shorter, but I even abbreviated a ton of stuff. So as you can see, this is a meaty first section. They get you going deep and fast. I mean, it's good. It's definitely good stuff. Please do not skip any of it. You will have major knowledge gaps if you do. Take the time, do it right, do it well. I've got lots to learn, and this was good stuff though. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the journey and didn't get too lost coming along with me tonight. Even if I went too fast, please watch it over again or pause me. Please like, share, and subscribe for more content. And let me know in the comments how you did on this exercise and how you feel, what your level of knowledge with JavaScript coming in and your level of familiarity with it is. And we'll go from there. And then tomorrow we'll start the next section in JavaScript. I think fundamentals part 2 or something like that. I won't make this video go any longer. So until next time, see ya.